In May 2025, the tennis world stopped for a moment, not because of a five-set thriller or a fairy tale comeback, but because of a press conference. Jasmine Paolini, Italy's rising star, sat in front of the world's media and broke her silence on the sport's most turbulent scandal in decades. What she said stunned fans, rattled officials, and lit social media on fire. But to understand why Paolini's words carry such weight, we need to look at what brought us here. Earlier this year, WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, CONS, announced a sweeping overhaul of its testing procedures. Sparked by whispers, irregular biological passports, and the growing sophistication of performance-enhancing drugs, the agency launched what it called its zero-tolerance reset. The tennis world barely had time to absorb the implications when the first two names dropped. Jannik, Iga Swiatek, two of the cleanest, hardest-working athletes on tour, suspended after what WADA described as substantial anomalies in both their blood values and off-season testing data. The bans were instant, 12 months, no exceptions. Appeals were filed, outrage erupted, and the silence from many top players only deepened the mystery, which is why Paolini's decision to speak was so significant. Ranked number 1, 6 in the world, and coming off the best year of her career, Jasmine could have played it safe. She could have dodged the controversy, recited pre-approved lines, and focused on her next match. But instead, she leaned into the mic and spoke from the gut. "It's hard to play," she said, "when you're looking across the net and wondering who's clean." Her voice didn't tremble. Her words didn't accuse, but there was fire behind her calm. She wasn't pointing fingers, she was pointing at the system. "The rules were always there," she continued, "but what WADA is doing now, it's more aggressive, and honestly, it's about time." For some, her comments were refreshing. Finally, a top player admitting what fans have been suspecting for years, that doping wasn't a relic of the past, but a shadow lurking in the present. For others, her words felt like betrayal. How could she speak like that about her fellow pros, especially when nothing has been proven in court? But Paolini didn't flinch. She talked about how locker room whispers have become louder, how some players' performances defy logic, how recoveries from injuries that once took months now happen in weeks, sometimes days. She made it clear she wasn't accusing anyone by name, but the patterns, she said, are impossible to ignore. And then she dropped the line that's now being quoted in headlines worldwide: "If the truth takes down the top 10, so be it." That sentence, simple, blunt, and radical, then became the rallying cry of a growing segment of players and fans who feel that tennis has reached a tipping point. The era of plausible deniability is over. Paolini's stance is not without risk. She's placed herself squarely in the middle of a war, between those who believe the new anti-doping measures are necessary and those who see them as an overreach, driven by politics, media, and governing body optics. She acknowledged this risk in her presser. She knows she'll be scrutinized. She knows people will look closer at her own records, her own training, her own team, and yet she still chose to speak. That's courage, but it's also strategy. Because whether intentional or not, Paolini has just positioned herself as the moral compass of the tour, and that carries weight, especially now. In the wake of Sinner and Swiatek's bans, other names have started to swirl. Nothing official, yet. But insiders whisper about sealed cases, pending investigations, and legal maneuvering behind the scenes. One source close to the ITIA, the International Tennis Integrity Agency, claimed that as many as 5 top 20 players are under active review. If true, this could be just the beginning, and that's what makes Paolini's speech so critical. She's not waiting for the flood to hit. She's bracing for it. And she's telling the world, "I'm not afraid." Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Over the past decade, tennis has evolved. Training methods, nutrition science, recovery tech, all have leaped forward. But so have the incentives to cheat. Prize money is at an all-time high. Sponsorship deals are worth millions. The difference between being ranked 15th and 5th isn't just prestige, it's generational wealth. And in this ultra competitive ecosystem, the temptation to gain even a 2% edge is immense. Most players, no doubt, are clean, but as with any sport, it only takes a few to create suspicion for all. WADA's reset is an attempt to clear that fog, and Jasmine Paolini's voice might be the loudest support they've gotten from inside the locker room. But there's more to this than testing protocols and blood samples. This is about trust. Fans want to believe in the athletes they support. When they watch a 5-hour epic, they want to think every drop of sweat is earned, every shot pure. When that trust is broken or even questioned, the damage is long lasting. Baseball knows it. Cycling knows it. Even athletics still hasn't fully recovered from its own doping scandals. Tennis has largely avoided that level of fallout, and until now. Yeah, Paolini, knowingly or not, may have opened the floodgates, but what's striking is the way she did it. No anger, no accusations, just, honesty. She talked about her own doubts, how even she, as a top player, sometimes wonders if she's on a level playing field, how the pressure to perform clean when others may not be can mess with your head. And yet, she remains committed to her process, to her ethics, to the idea that the game is bigger than rankings and that integrity matters, that kind of message resonates, especially with younger players coming up. They see someone like Jasmine, not a multi-slam champion, not the most famous name, but respected, consistent, and principled, like standing up and saying, yeah, we need to do better. And that matters because revolutions rarely start at the top. They start from within, from those who've seen both sides, who've grinded on the ITF circuit, who've fought for wildcard entries, who've lived the sport, not as pampered stars, but as true professionals. That's Paolini. And that's why her words hit different. The days after her press conference saw a wave of reactions. Some supportive, some defensive. A few players, notably from the Spanish and Eastern European camps, hinted that Paolini was misinformed or overreacting. But others, like Arina Sabalenka and Ons Jabeur, backed her openly. The tennis world is dividing, not along ranking lines, but ideological ones. Those who believe the doping era is exaggerated, and those who believe we're only beginning to uncover it. It's uncomfortable, but maybe it's necessary. Like, sports grow through confrontation, through moments where the status quo is challenged, through voices like Jasmine's, and now all eyes are on Roland Garros, not just to see who wins, but to see who speaks, who stands, who stays silent. Because in the aftermath of scandal, silence isn't neutral, it's political. Paolini chose to speak, and in doing so, she changed the game. Maybe not overnight, but in time, we may look back at May 2025 as the moment tennis faced itself, when and chose to fight for its soul.